Welcome to week 8 of Rebuild Mark. Actually, this week's update's going to be in the garage, but I had a couple of extra things I wanted to mention before we get to that. First is a product that I've used for years, but for some reason kept forgetting to use. Chamois butter. So I used it on my longer ride this weekend. I don't know if it's a need thing. I go back and forth on that, but I can tell you this. Need is an ugly 4-letter word when it comes to activities that we certainly don't need to deem as essential. But want is a much better word. And once you use chamois butter, at least once I remember to use it again after I have it in a while, it's just wonderful. It makes things far more comfortable down there. And I think if you haven't tried it, it's worth trying. There's lots of different chamois creams out there. So I'm sure people like different ones. I always end up coming back to this one. Good old original chamois butter. It's reasonably priced. Comes in a bunch of different packaging. You get little single serves if you want to reapply during the event. I tend to just buy these big tubes and use it once, but worth checking into if you haven't. The second thing is during the update that you're about to see in the garage, I talk about my training. I was pretty excited about things, but that was on Friday. So then I had the weekend to deal with. And as I mentioned in that section, the weather did play a role. And so what was supposed to be 3 hours outside on Saturday ended up being an hour and a half inside doing intervals, which went well, but an hour and a half of intervals is not 3 hours of outside base riding like I needed. And then Sunday, the weather was better. So I did get out for that planned 5-hour ride, but ended up cutting it short for a variety of different reasons, including just not feeling myself out there. And, you don't want to be foggy out riding around. So wanted to update that. Didn't get the hours I hoped and need to make up for that because this coming week is the planned 8-hour mega race tune-up simulation ride. And I certainly hope the weather cooperates and I can get that done. Now, on to the garage. Welcome to week 8 of Rebuild Mark. I'm Mark Still. I am back in the garage. I got some stuff to talk about on the bike. So I need storage solutions for this big long race for all the various and sundry things. Last year I used this Revel 8 mag tank bag. I'm going to use it again this year. It worked quite well. It holds all sorts of things I might need to grab right away. Tylenol for neck pain, extra hydration pieces from like Tailwind. And if you haven't already, I did a great interview with Jenny and Jeff Vierling from Tailwind, the founders of Tailwind. They gave me some great tips on how to use their products and how to think about calories in per hour in general. Take a look at that because it's got some great tips in it that might help you as well. But I need more space, so I've got this Silka handlebar bag. 2 liters worth of space and water resistant. It says waterproof. That's got plenty of room in it. I really don't know what I'm going to put in there besides a power bank to charge the computer and the phone and some snacks, but that's going to fit right there on the front. For a little additional storage and hydration, last year I used the Camelback Chase vest. I will either use that or another Camelback with larger water capacity. I'm going to wait and find out what the announcement on the course is, how long it is between the neutral water. Will we have neutral water support like we've had the last year? I don't know. But if we have, I may stick with the smaller volume Chase vest because it's got lots of great storage. It's very comfortable. If it's going to be longer, I may go with the bigger pack so I can have more water on board. So you may be thinking, well, what about a saddlebag if you need storage? I don't plan to use one because I've got this internal SWAT storage in the frame of the Specialized Diverge STR. In that are things that I hope not to need. Tubes, extra CO2s, etc., tools. If I need them, I can get to them. But what I'll have is the Dynaplugs to plug quick flats, CO2s and an inflator easily accessible. So hopefully if I do have a flat, I can patch that and get back on the road quick. But the internal SWAT, more than enough room to cover what would be in a saddlebag. And then I don't have to have that extra thing on the back of the bike. One of the things that might end up in this Revel 8 mag tank bag are some inflation tools. Now I've got plenty of inflation tools. In fact, there's some in this SWAT container in the frame, but they're buried kind of deep in there. And I got to thinking the other day, that inflator that's exactly the same one, the Air Chuck, is at least 15 years old. I haven't used it in years. I don't even know if it still works. So I bought an extra one. So I've got 2. I'll certainly test that one. But think about that because I also pulled out the tubes that I carried last year thinking I'd use them again. But they sat in that bag and rattled around so much that I think it wore holes in them. So there's your tip. Look at the gear you're carrying and assess whether or not it'll actually work. I mean, if you've got tubes stuffed in a bag that have been there for 5 years, you might want to get some new tubes before an event you've invested in so much, like Unbound. This week's training was pretty good. Now, on, I think it was Monday, I was supposed to do an hour and a half base level stuff. The weather wasn't great. I was going to do it on the trainer. I have hit a wall on trainers, and about an hour is all I got on those base rides. Now, on Thursday, I had to do a 90-minute interval type workout, 4x8s. It had a fancy name Coach Kristen gave me. That I can still do because I'm occupied with these intervals and things. And then this weekend, I'm supposed to do 5 hours on Saturday, 6 hours on Sunday. The weather is slated to not be so good here in Colorado, so I may move things around. We'll just have to see, but I'm doing really well. I hate to stop that because I'm at that point where I need the volume. Next week is the biggest ride. It's going to be 8 hours, so it should be over 100 miles. But that's the important thing right now is get the volume in. I feel great on a bike, better than I have in years. I give a lot of credit to Kristen Legan for that, my coach, but also I've done the work. So I'm a little happier this year than I was last year about my physical state because we're just a month away from Unbound. And speaking of training, I got an email from a friend that asked, training-wise, what's different this year than last year? Well, it couldn't be more different. I hired my first ever cycling coach this year. I've been doing structured workouts for the first time. I've never done structured workouts in cycling. So last year I was kind of riding around doing what it felt like. That didn't really serve me that well. This year I have done a lot of very specific workouts, not of my own making. Coach Kristen gave them to me, but I've been doing them to my credit. And boy, I feel a whole lot better on the bike, both just the comfort sitting on the bike, because I've spent more time on the bike, but also in the power. I haven't felt this powerful on a bike in a long, long time. Am I super powerful? No, we figured out my functional threshold power is only about 215 watts. Maybe it gets a little better in the next month, but look, that's got to be way better than it was last year. So if I don't make it this year, it for sure won't be because of my legs. So I mentioned that the goal this year is very different than last year. I want to beat the sun this year. Last year, I just thought if everything goes right, I could finish. But beating the sun means about a 14-mile-an-hour average, including all the stops. And I don't know that I see that yet. And frankly, let me just say that differently. I don't see that yet. I'm averaging 14 or 15 on my rides now, moving time, but that doesn't include the crazy course in Kansas. It doesn't include stops and checkpoints. So I don't know if I see that, but I'm still glad I set that goal. I'm still going to shoot for that. But if it's, between 9 o'clock and midnight when I get in, I'll be really pleased with that. And I feel like that's more than reasonable given the work that I've put in. And if you're hearing something a little different, I'm talking about data and workouts, it is very different. I think that makes a difference in how you prepare the other parts of the race because it's one more variable that I feel like I've taken care of. So last year it was more like, I feel this, I might do this, maybe this. I really am confident that I can pedal that distance this year. Maybe it's 9 o'clock, maybe it's 8:45 and I beat the sun, maybe it's midnight. But I'm not so worried about pedaling this year, where I did have a little bit of concern of, I've never done it. Of course, I've still never done it. But I really feel like I can make it this year based on the work I've put in. And thinking back to last year and my attitude towards it, at the time, I think I had the right attitude. But now looking back on it, I can see I really wasn't very confident in what was going to happen because I think in the back of my mind, I knew I hadn't done the work. This year's different. I do feel like there's a path to the finish line that's based on actual work versus hope. As the great George Carlin said, hope sucks. So do the work. And remember, this is a group project. I want to know how I can support you in your endurance adventures and trying to be fit as life progresses. So let me know in the comments. Give me some questions about what you're struggling with or what questions you have around equipment or events in general. I'll try and answer those questions and share my experience with that. And then follow along. If you want to see the rides I'm doing, you can see those on Strava at Uphill Still. And if you have questions you don't want to ask in public, email me at mark@browntimemedia.com.